What is WrestleMania 40 going to look like for WWE's women's division? Let's break it down.
Oh yeah, we want retribution! Yeah, we ran out of patience!
When looking at the post-COVID WrestleManias, the women's division has unfortunately never had a huge presence on the show. At WrestleMania 39, there were 4 matches spread out over 2 nights, and at WrestleMania 38, there were only 3. So while I would love for there to be 5, 6, 7 women's matches at WrestleMania this year, realistically, I think we're probably going to get 4, maybe 5. So let's break down what each of those matches will be. First, starting with the confirmed matches. The first one that comes to mind is Rhea Ripley versus Becky Lynch for the Women's World title. And as of this recording, it's looking more and more likely that this will not be a singles match and that Liv Morgan and potentially Nia Jax will get themselves involved to make it a fatal 4-way. I'm not a huge fan of that. I think Rhea versus Becky is a big enough marquee match to stand on its own. Becky is arguably the biggest star in the history of the women's division. Rhea Ripley is inarguably the biggest star of the women's division today. So for that reason, this is a dream match. But when you look at Liv Morgan and Nia Jax and you're trying to think of what, if anything, are they going to have to do at WrestleMania 40, the only thing I can think of is for them to insert themselves into this match. I don't necessarily agree with it. I think, again, Becky versus Rhea is the match to make, and I think Liv and Nia are each big enough stars to go have other matches at WrestleMania. But to be honest, whether it's a one-on-one with Becky or a fatal 4-way with Liv and Nia, I think Rhea's walking out with the title because a lot of other champions are likely going to be dethroned at WrestleMania, so I think it stands to reason that you have at least one of your marquee champions retain, and I think Rhea is that champion, mainly because there's so many more matches for her to have, whether that be with her and Liv Morgan, or her and Jade Cargill, or you could throw Bianca Belair into the mix after the draft. There's just a lot more opportunity with Rhea holding the title at this moment. So again, what do I want to happen? I want it to be Becky versus Rhea in a one-on-one match, and at that point I really don't care who walks out on top, but if it ends up being a fatal 4-way or a triple threat, I think Rhea is walking out on top. Moving on to the next confirmed match for the women's division, it's Bayley versus Io Sky for the WWE Women's title. Unlike Rhea versus Becky, I think this match is pretty straightforward. I don't see anybody else being officially added to the match, although I do see the rest of Damage Control potentially interfering. From a story standpoint, this has been the best build that WWE has done for a women's program this WrestleMania season. I don't think Bayley has ever been this over as a babyface, and she's quickly becoming the women's division's Cody Rhodes, who everyone is just rallying behind. When looking at what's going to happen, one option, and this is admittedly the more preferred option amongst the internet wrestling community, is that Bayley wins. And the main argument for this is that Bayley is super over, and when looking at Io Sky, she admittedly hasn't done a whole lot to elevate the women's title. She puts on great matches, but as a character isn't particularly compelling. However, on the flip side, the argument for Io retaining is that if WWE wants this new version of Damage Control to be a dominant faction, you want everyone leaving WrestleMania 40 with their titles. Kabuki Warriors retain the tag titles, Io retains the WWE Women's title. And then you can keep Dakota Kai in that managerial role as basically the fighting version of Paul Heyman, who's representing Damage Control. So at the moment, I'm going to say 70% of me says Bayley's going to win, with 30% thinking WWE might want Io to retain just to bolster Damage Control as a whole. If Bayley does win, I would love to see her immediately get thrown into a feud with Dakota Kai, and then maybe Dakota Kai wins, and that's how you keep Damage Control super dominant. Okay, so now we get into the fun part of what other matches do we think will be on the WrestleMania card for the women's division. And I think realistically you're looking at 2. One for the women's tag titles and one being something for Bianca Belair. I think it's very clear that the Kabuki Warriors will defend the tag titles at WrestleMania. It just comes down to who. And at the time of recording, it seems like Naomi will align herself with Bayley to take on the Kabuki Warriors for the tag titles. And for me, this is awesome. I think the way to properly build the women's tag team division is for the women's tag team titles to have a proper showcase match. And the way to do that is not a fatal four-way where you have the Kabuki Warriors versus Shayna and Zoe versus Natalya and Tegan versus Chelsea and Piper. Are those fatal four-way matches fun? Yes, but if you want the women's tag team division to really grow, you need to have a match similar to Sami and KO versus the Usos at WrestleMania 39. And I think having Naomi, Asuka, Kairi Sane, and somebody else all in the ring creating magic together, that's the best possible move. Just comes down to who is that fourth person going to be? Who is going to align themselves with Naomi? And honestly, at the time of this recording, it's very likely that it's going to be Jade Cargill for a multitude of reasons. One being, you need Jade Cargill at WrestleMania. If you want to start building the women's division around her, if you want her to become this dominant threat, she needs to be at WrestleMania. But if you're a WWE higher up and you don't quite think Jade is ready to have a singles match yet, throwing her in a tag match with multiple people is the next best thing. Both Naomi and Jade have had standoffs with Damage Control, so yeah, I think it's going to be Naomi and Jade versus the Kabuki Warriors. And as for who wins this match, honestly, I'm leaning the Kabuki Warriors just so Damage Control can have some type of dominance leaving WrestleMania. But I also don't want Naomi or Jade having to take a pin. And honestly, Naomi and Jade winning the tag titles might be awesome. Because if you wind the clocks back, that's why Naomi walked out of WWE to begin with, is the women's tag team titles. If Naomi was given the opportunity to use the women's tag team titles to bolster the division, that would be a tremendous full circle moment. Plus, having Jade Cargill learn from Naomi and the Kabuki Warriors in the ring would do great for her career because she would be learning from the best while also still being made to look like the best to the general public. Alright, moving on to my fourth option, something with Bianca Belair. I think it's very clear it's going to be Bianca versus Tiffany in a grudge match at WrestleMania. And from an in-ring perspective, this could probably be the best match of WrestleMania weekend, no question, because Tiffany and Bianca are two of the best wrestlers working today, period. I think her and Tiffany each having the opportunity to just have fun and put on an absolute banger of a match is probably the way to go. And I think Bianca is 1000% going to win, even though the crowd is super behind Tiffany Stratton, because I think WWE wants Bianca's undefeated WrestleMania streak to continue. There is a huge story with that streak that they can create, but they have to keep it going. Alright, so those are the four matches that I think are going to be on the card, but what are some other wild card matches that might happen? Well, I think it's very likely that Jade Cargill doesn't get involved with the tag team match and instead has a WrestleMania singles match. If WWE thinks she's ready, I think Jade Cargill having her debut singles match at WrestleMania against somebody like a Nia Jax is very likely. I think Nia Jax having something to do at WrestleMania is also likely. She's been putting in really good work as of late, and she just main evented Elimination Chamber, so to leave her off the card entirely seems odd. At the moment, it seems more likely that she's going to be involved with the Rhea match, but they might just give her a singles match with someone like Liv Morgan. Raquel Rodriguez has come out saying it is her goal to get on the WrestleMania card, and I don't think WWE would just have her say that if there weren't some plans in the works for her. So whether that be her beating Nia Jax in a singles match, her going up against a newly turned heel Liv Morgan in a singles match, or her winning the Battle Royal in the pre-show, it seems likely that Raquel will also have something to do at the show of shows. Alright, so that is my WrestleMania 40 fantasy booking for WWE's women's division. Did I miss any potential matches? Let me know in the comments below. Bye bye.